Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Command Tower, episode 6. We're very sorry that we've been away for a while, but, needs must, and illness and real life and everything's kind of got in the way. But we're back now, and Adam is here with me,
Hello there.
and we have no Tom tonight, but instead we found a replacement in Kurt.
Hey guys, how's it going? My name's Kurt. I'm part of Adam's Commander casual group. Predominantly play Commander on a sort of weekly basis, but I'm also an avid drafter and try and stay away from standard when I can.
Cool. Okay, so this week we're going to be talking about theme decks. So by theme we mean decks that are built around a certain topic or subject, and that also encompasses tribal decks. So to start off with, we're going to talk a little bit about how you'd get a theme deck started, if that's what you want to try. So for me, what I tend to do is, because I build a lot of theme decks, I have 4 tribal decks and about 4 theme decks. And what I tend to do is I get the theme in my head. So let's say I want to build a deck built around a certain TV show. So it's been done. Someone's built a Red Dwarf theme deck.
Okay.
So the first thing I'd do is I'd look for a commander that fits the theme. Is there a commander that fits the theme? Yes, there is. I look at the colours that are available to it, and then I look through cards of those in that colour identity to see what fits, and I basically build my deck around that. What about you guys?
Well, one of the important things that I want to point out right at the start on this is I think the big thing is what some people might perceive to be a theme deck and what others don't. Because I've heard people that say, "Oh, mine's a theme deck; it just produces tokens." Now, I don't really consider that to be a theme deck. That's kind of almost like a type. It's a token deck, it's a control deck, it's an aggro deck. That's not a theme. Theme is something that transcends the type. So you could have a token deck that's got a theme, but being tokens isn't a theme. I haven't really got any theme decks per se apart from tribal. I'm very much a tribal builder. Even when I used to play casually beforehand, over half of my casual decks were assorted tribes. So I'm very much a case of, rather than try and pick a theme and work on that, I just grab a tribe, start hunting down the list of reading all the cards that they produce.
Okay. So, what's the first thing, aside from what creatures there are available for their tribe? What do you look for in spells and non-creature permanents?
Well, for me, that would be just, for example, say, let's pick a tribe, we'll go with elves. So that almost immediately puts into your head that you're likely to be using green. The only other really options then to splash in are going to be white and black. So I still tend to pick the same core of when you're looking outside the tribe, the same core of cards that I would normally use for colours. So for white, I would look towards getting in some decent spot removal. So black also some decent spot removal. Black also provides you a little bit of card draw here and there with bits and pieces. White gives you access to a decent amount of life gain stuff. So I'd still tend to aim for the same kind of cards to bolster the deck. I just concentrate when I do a tribe. It's the core of the deck has to be a tribe. I try and avoid any creatures that don't fit in the tribe. But also spells that kind of fit the theme work as well. So. But they're not always the easiest thing to start off with. Is trying to actually stay true to your tribe and true to your theme isn't the easiest thing all the time.
No, it certainly isn't, especially with decks like my Jasmine Burrell. I bring it up again, and that's fairly easy to build and to come up with. It's by the way, if you want to search for vanilla creatures on Gatherer because you're mad, you type in to the box does not contain the text box does not contain the letters A, E, I, O, or U.
Is that the only way to get it to work?
That's the way you get it to work. Yeah, so that will give you every vanilla creature there is. And obviously, though, there are drawbacks to building a deck like that, because you know that you're going to be weak to flyers. You know that you're going to be weak to mass removal. You know, there's going to be so many things that are almost commander staples that you are going to lose to. So there is a temptation to say, well, that as a win condition, I'm going to say to hell with the vanillas. I'm going to give all my creatures trample, for example, with overrun.
I think that's an important. I think that's an important point when it comes to discussing, themes or tribal. How true do you want to be to that? Do you want to forsake being able to win a game for a concept, or do you want to sort of compromise that a little bit and actually have a hope of winning the game? And I think that's ultimately up to the person making the deck. Like, I've made decks whereby it could definitely benefit from forsaking the idea of the theme or the tribal, but I just couldn't do it because you're putting so much time into that idea, and I personally wouldn't feel comfortable winning with something which didn't fit the theme or the tribe of the deck.
No, indeed. The other thing to consider as well with tribal deck, with theme decks, as is going to be brought up soon in our deck tech, is you don't even just have to look at creature types or cards with certain words in their name. You can also look at art as well. So if you want, let's say, we'll keep the elf theme running, but the card isn't an elf card. Let's say it's an enchantment. It has nothing to do with elves, but there are, say, a Llanowar elf in the picture. To me, that would count because it's still an elf card of sorts, if that makes sense.
So, like, if you're playing white-green, white-black, you'd be perfectly fine with Farseek being in there, for example, because it's got an elf holding a binocular, looking out over the city.
Yeah, I'd be quite happy with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that kind of thing makes sense, and that all nice and ties it in. But I mean, as you were saying, tribes. Where I think most people, when you say a theme deck, everyone's kind of go-to response is tribes. Well, personally, that's certainly where I would go to whenever someone said theme deck to me. But I mean, as obviously we'll see in a bit, and as you mentioned with like, for example, you chose the art there. Just having a theme deck doesn't need to involve a tribe at all. I mean, you could choose to try and, as crazy as it sounds, build a deck based entirely off your favourite artist.
Which I have done.
Oh, you have one that's just off your favourite artist, is it?
Yeah, Raymond Swanland.
What's he done then? Because I'm not good with artists.
He's done the morph tokens from Khans of Tarkir.
All right.
That's him. He's done quite a few in Khans actually. He's done it's called Living Tsunami from Zendikar or something like that. Nixafid. He'd done Ruhan. He'd done the original Crash the Blood Braided.
All right, so it gives you a nice selection of random colours there.
It does. So that basically leads you to two different three-coloured tribes. The only downside to doing artist, especially with Raymond Swanland, is if they haven't done loads, then you end up being stuck with some really crummy cards that just aren't good. So, for example, my Raymond deck built around Crash, is so low on numbers, it has to have that thing in that cares about morphs that came out in Khans, and it doesn't even do anything in the deck. It's just there.
The one that lets you look at morphs, is it?
It's the one. I think that's one of his actually. It's the one. Whenever you play a morph creature, you can search it over for a land.
Oh right, yes, yeah. Yeah, so I mean, as I said, that was kind of an extreme view because I mean, obviously you'd need to pick a well-established artist. I mean, if you're not careful, you may even find an artist that's never done any basic lands, in which case you're really scuppered. But yeah, there's loads of ways you can theme a deck. I mean, ideas like that. I mean, most of my theme decks are all based off my old casual decks. That when we used to play with 60-card casual decks, and as I said, I had Zombie Lord deck, Elf Lord deck, so on and so forth. Now, as we switched from casual to commander, these decks became useless, so they got broken down and turned into the basis of commander decks. And that's why I still have quite a dominance of tribal decks.
Yeah, I've got Angel Tribal, Bird Tribal, Cat Tribal, and Anything else? My fiance's got Vampire Tribal. I think I have something else. I can't remember. But I like tribal decks, obviously, as I've just named that I have some. But I try and work a little bit harder on my themes rather than just saying, well, I'm just going to build an elf deck. It's quite easy to just go on Gather Up, look at elves, pick the best ones. Bit too lazy for my liking, but oh, there's a cat. Hello, cat.
Sorry, I'm being plagued by a cat at the moment. Sorry.
That's fine. At least it's not mine this time.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, the Gather thing. That's where you've got a lot of people have to start, because certainly with people without a large card-based knowledge, that's really where you only got to go with. And as you said, theme decks can be more than tribals, but trying to build a non-tribal theme deck does, I feel, require a lot more card knowledge.
It does, or a lot of hard work on Gather, as I found.
Yeah, a lot of, so you need card knowledge. You need friends. You need access to older cards if you're really going in for a proper theme. Because obviously just picking on the new ones, you're going to be very limited to what you have, and like you said, end up with stuff in your deck that just shouldn't really be there. It's just there to make up the numbers.
Yeah, filler cards, yeah. So what about you then, Kurt? What do you do with theme decks, if anything?
Well, it's really important for me whenever I start on a commander deck, I always pick the commander first. And then every single commander deck I have is built around not necessarily abusing that general, but just picking cards which fit with what that general wants to be doing. So I have a Melik EDH deck, the red-blue Izzet champion from Dragon's Maze, who he basically doubles any spell you cast on the top of your library. So in there, I'm going for instants and sorcerers predominantly. There's a couple of permanents in there that aren't lands, but it is mainly a sort of a spell slingers type deck, and really spells which benefit from being copied. And there's spells in there which I'd never normally think twice about putting in. But when you get to copy it, it really makes it a pretty strong deck. And every sort of commander deck I build is based around the premise of building it around the commander. So that's a theme as such. I do have one tribal EDH deck, which is a Sig the Cutthroat Rogue deck, which was inspired purely from the Gatecrash pre-release, where I had Death Cult Rogues in my constructed deck and terrorized everybody with these rogues which couldn't be blocked. And I thought, do you know what? That sounds like a pretty fantastic commander deck to me. So yeah, I mean, I have fallen in the tribal pitfalls with regards to a theme deck, but I think it's really important for me personally when I'm making a commander deck to follow the theme of the commander.
Yeah, that's generally how I tend to kind of go the other way. So my theme's laid out. I see if there's a commander for it, and then I build that way. But both ways work. Both ways work quite well. So, what tips have we got then for our few listeners if they want to start on a theme deck?
Well, the first tip I would say is if you're really going to commit to a tribal or theme deck, you kind of almost have to a certain degree, forget some of the go-to cards you would automatically want to put into a deck of that colour, because they may not make it, and you may end up finding that you're trying to squeeze them in and that they don't fit with your theme. If you're going to really commit to a theme deck, you've got to go all into it and enjoy it. It's not going to be your most powerful deck regularly. I'm not saying they're not going to be powerful. Some of them are going to win really well. As Kurt said, his Melik deck, and it is quite a very strong deck. But, I mean, I wouldn't say that any of my theme decks are even close to being my strongest decks, because there's cards that I know I would take out. I mean, just for example, I've got a dragon deck, and they've got like things like fledgling dragon, dragon hatchling, things like that in. Things I just wouldn't have in a normal Jund coloured commander deck. But they're in there in place of cards that are more powerful than them because they fit the theme. You don't have to completely abandon the concept of it not being a strong deck, because you can still make them very strong, but except they might not be as powerful as you maybe have some of your other decks, but just actually get in there and enjoy it.
Yeah, good tip. Good tip. Kurt?
I think it's really important to, when you're researching it, make use of all the resources that you've got. I mean, like you said, Gather is a fantastic way of doing something. I mean, there's plenty of apps out there as well where you can put in, keywords or creature types and have access to every single card that you've ever sort of never heard of, but suddenly at your fingertips. Like, I've got a Varol's EDH deck, the Golgari champion from Dragon's Maze again. Makes me sound like I'm some sort of Ravnica fanboy. But I basically was trying to find out creatures that had really high power toughness to the ratio of the converted mana cost, which Gatherer would never ever help you with. But there are apps out there which, Decked is one example which I use quite a lot. You can put in converted mana cost 1 and then set the toughness to be 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever, and it's actually quite surprising what you can come up with. So, don't be afraid to ask for help or use the internet or technology to help you, because we're in such an exciting time now where you can have an entire collection of every Magic card ever printed on your phone and just have fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same. Would obviously say use your resources. I mean, the thing with theme decks, as you'll see when we get to the deck text, is quite often a lot of older cards appear. I mean, Commander itself is only a very young format. I mean, yes, obviously, I'm not. There's plenty of players that have been playing for years that have started playing Commander, but you will have people that have played Commander longer in your group than you have. That might probably have collections going back long way back. They're the guys, when you're building Commander decks, they're usually the ones with gold mines of cards, because some of the old cards that aren't worth a great deal to many people would go beautifully in a theme or tribal deck. So speak to your other players, see if they've got any suggestions for any. You decide to pick on a theme, mention it to the guys that have been playing for a long time, see if they've got anything they can help you with.
Yeah, yeah. I've got a couple. Don't be afraid to use air quotes bad cards, because I play bad cards all the time, and yeah, I lose sometimes. I win sometimes, the same as everybody. But I've won a game with a 2-3 for 2, which just gone through completely unblocked, and that's not looked at as a good card. And if you've got these cards knocking about in your collection, if you've got them knocking around in boxes at home, dust them off, put them in, give them some love. The other tip is, and I found this one quite helpful, don't be afraid to Google your theme, because 99% of the time you've got the same idea as somebody else has had, and someone else has done it. I'm not saying copy their deck exactly card for card, because you've done nothing to that, and ultimately it isn't your deck if you do that. You're just playing what someone else has already made. But look at what other people have done, see what cards you like, not necessarily cards that are ridiculously powerful, just cards you like the look of. Use those. The ones that are maybe too powerful for you or too expensive for you, or you just don't like them, change them for ones you've got. As long as you feel that they fit the theme, and if someone asks you to justify it, which you don't have to, but you can, because you can say, well, it's part of the theme because of this. For example, like if you're going to do one on aliens, you could, I don't know, play Skin Render, and if someone says, well, why are you playing Skin Render in an alien deck? Well, look at it. Look at its art. It looks like a bloody alien. So, just before we wrap this segment up, then, each of us gives one pro and one con for building and playing a tribal or theme deck. So, my pro is that you can have a lot of creativity. You can put your own ideas to it, and you don't have to play with the strongest cards available to you if you don't want to, and that's fully justifiable in your theme. The cons are, especially with actual theme decks that aren't tribal, is that sometimes the cards are quite hard to find on Gatherer. Maybe you want something that has a particular something in the art. Like, for example, I have a deck where every piece of art has a woman in it. It's been nicknamed the booby deck in my play group, and it absolutely sucks as well, by the way. It's awful. But trying to find magic art with pictures of women is actually impossible on any search engine. The most you can do, I suppose, is look up legendary female legend first and sort of go that way. So what about you guys?
Well, I would say as a pro, as you mentioned earlier, playing with themes and tribes lets you have, as we said earlier, just summing it up, it lets you have access to using the cards the bad cards, the ones you'd normally dismiss, that might end up being quite useful in a theme backed up by other cards of their similar type. And at the same time, that's also in a way a con, because some of these bad older cards, as you say, that they're quite hard to get hold of, and you do need to have a broader collection and a broader knowledge to know which ones are out there to use. But yeah, I mean, I would say we've kind of covered most of the pros and cons in the first bit. But yeah, I think as a rule, tribe and themes, I think they're one of the more fun deck types to play. But I've always said that they're just not, quite often, not as powerful as their non-themed cousins.
Yeah.
Okay. I think. Oh, sorry.
No, carry on.
I think when it comes to one of the pros of a theme deck is the consistency. If you've got a deck which is built around a theme or a tribe, you know, you're not just digging for 3, 4, 5 good cards. You've got cards that are in there which can do a job for you, and it's very rare, in my experience, and from playing with people that run tribal or theme decks, that they get knocked out of the game turn 4, turn 5. They normally have the resources for a consistent game to stabilize and stay in it. But on the other side, the con of that is the best win conditions for your colours might not fit your tribe. So you are in a bit of a struggle there by maybe hamstringing yourself by not having a fantastic, black bomb in there, because, you're only running, black blue zombies or black blue rogues.
Yeah. Okay, so final word on this. Favourite tribe? Go.
Zombies.
Rogues. Black blue rogues.
Angels. Mono white angels as well. So, okay, should we go on to the next bit then?
Yeah, so the next bit, obviously, as previous episode, we're going to go with the deck tech. As usual, we've themed the deck tech to the previous discussion, so we've gone with themes. We've actually, unusually, got 2 decks up for shot this time, because as we've discussed previously, we've got 2 kind of different concept of theme. We've got a tribal theme and a non-tribal theme deck to look through. So we're kind of discussing both sides of the coin that we've already looked at. So, shall we take a shot? Which one should we take a shot at first?
Should we go tribal?
We'll go tribal. So, up for tribal is my zombie deck. So, obviously, the link to it will be on the comments below on YouTube. So, it's a blue-black zombie deck with Grimgrin at the helm. He seems quite suitably big and chunky as an leader for them. So literally researching this deck, I ploughed through Gatherer, just chucked zombie into Gatherer and pretty much read through every single card there are. There was a lot. It did take quite some time. I did start to lose my way a little bit towards the end. Basically, I've tried to ensure that every single creature is a zombie. I think there's a single non-zombie creature in there, and that's Grave Titan, which, I think that's forgivable.
And Erebos.
Oh yes, and Erebos, but it's arguable whether he's a creature sometimes. So yeah. Then I mean, the rest of the stuff really was either stuff that works well in a tribe, Or it was, with obviously zombies being a general dead theme, I chucked in just a small amount of graveyard raiding abilities, a few little bit of a bit of board wipe, a little bit of card draw, and anything that had the word zombie written on it anywhere kind of went in. So that was kind of where it went. I mean, oddly enough, it's one of the few decks that since its first incarnation, I've not actually made any alterations to it. It's not one I play regularly with, but it does seem to always do well when it comes out. Grimgrin can quite often pull his weight quite a bit and do a fair bit of damage in a game.
Yeah, I can speak firsthand about sitting across the table with this deck, and it is terrifying when you see some of the stuff coming out. I mean, yeah, Grimgrin does not play well with others. He definitely likes to throw his weight around, like you say, and you know it's not long really before he's getting towards one-hit kills, which yeah.
Yeah, he's numerous times got to one-hit kills. The only saving grace of that is the lack of trample in the deck means I've got to make it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, I like the look of this deck. Blue-black isn't my strong point, to be honest.
No, they're my two weakest colours.
Yeah, they are with me as well. So I really love the fact that you're playing Zombie Apocalypse. I mean, you have to for the theme anyway. But I absolutely love Zombie Apocalypse as a card, and Endless Ranks of the Dead. That's probably one of the nicest pieces of art that's been in Magic for a while.
Yes, I do love that picture.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. I can't help thinking Grave Pacts might be quite nice.
Now, yeah, Grave Pact, as we mentioned on one of our, I think it was the very first episode, is on our frowned on list in our group.
Oh, I remember you saying, yeah.
Yeah, but call to the grave kind of helps me out a little bit. But yeah, Grave Pact is as much as I'd love to put it in there, it is a little bit frowned on in our group.
Yeah. Isn't there that new card from Khans that does something with lots of zombies?
Yeah, Empty the Pits. That was one that I was going to suggest as an add to when we get to that point. But yeah, Empty the Pits is a pretty ridiculous card for this deck.
Yeah, yeah, I remember seeing that one. I can't think what it does offside. I've not really got.
It's instant speed, 4 black, and XX. It has Delve. You put X zombie creatures that are 2/2s onto the battlefield tapped.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bit ridiculous.
I think the other card, I'm not sure if it's in here or not, just looking through the deck list. I haven't got the 13 zombie one either. I was in Innistrad, put 13 2/2 zombies into play.
Oh, yes. No. Oh, yeah, I didn't even notice that wasn't there.
Yeah, I'm just looking and wondering where it is because I'm fairly sure I had one at one point, but obviously not in here because I say I've not altered this deck list at all. So
No. I like the look of it. It's, as we say, it's very sort of bang on the theme. You know, obviously all of your creatures are going to be zombies, but every other spell, with probably no exceptions, maybe a couple of the artifacts, but then you can always make a case for artifacts anyway, not fitting themes. But every single card fits the theme to this deck, and that's why I like it. Everything just screams zombie at you.
yeah, I understand that. I mean, the artifacts are the only ones that don't really, as you say, directly fit. But I mean, the ones that's in there. I mean, there's only the 4. You've got Dora Destinies, which that's a shoe into any tribal deck, as is the Incubator. Gauntlet of Power. I mean, obviously it's in here because the deck is, even though it's blue-black, it is majority black. So obviously it boosts very nicely and gives me nice mana acceleration. And Whip's just a good laugh.
Yeah. I can imagine Whip's quite good in this.
Well, oddly, yeah, it does prove nice. I mean, obviously, I tend to end up with a lot of dead, as does hopefully the rest of the board. So, but yeah, I would say it's enjoyable. I think it is kind of what we were saying earlier. It's almost the atypical of trying to do a tribal deck where even, as you say, the spells have tried to stay themed as well.
Yeah.
I mean, even just looking through the list of spells here, I mean, there's not a single spell there that isn't in some way to do with death and the grave and so on and so forth. They're all that inclined.
Yeah, I've got a suggestion, but you may go ahead talking while I look it up.
Well, what? Go on. So, well, so you can start describing it. See if we get there first.
Okay, okay. So it's an artifact, and it allows you to put put the bottom card of your library into your graveyard. If it's a creature, cellar door.
Oh yes, in Innistrad, yeah.
Yeah, I think that fits the theme quite well. I think it's also quite good to get Grim back if he gets condemned to the bottom.
Yes, that's never happened as yet. I mean, to be honest, one of the other things I did consider that this deck is missing, that a lot of decks that kind of have horrifically power hungry generals. I've not included Swiftfoot Boots or the other one. What's the two?
Lightning Greaves.
I've not included either of those into it. It's mainly as much as I think Grim would love to have them. I don't really think they fit on a big fat lumbering zombie lord.
No, zombies are supposed to move slowly.
Yeah, and be relatively easy to dispatch. Just if they catch you, you're in trouble.
Yeah, you just need a shotgun.
I don't think they have shotguns in Magic, Dan.
They have rocket launchers.
Did they? Yeah, no, I'll give you that. We discussed that last time. Yeah, so I remember the rocket launcher.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, this is one of 4 tribal decks that I own, and I would say oddly, it's probably one of the ones I play with the least. Yet I think it's overall my favourite one. I don't know why that ends up. I think it just ends up not in the, because all my Magic decks are in different boxes. I just probably don't grab the box that this one's in.
Yeah. I even like the fact that having all rune binders in, not being a zombie itself, but makes them.
Yeah, sorry, he's the other non-zombie creature. I did think there was 2, and I couldn't see it earlier when I said Grave Titan.
Yeah. No,
Yeah, so
I definitely think that fits very well.
yeah. Yeah, so well, that's so. So I mean, that's. I would like to say. I mean, Carrion Wonder is not a zombie either, but he's a changeling. So you know, and if you look at the picture, he looks pretty dead.
He does, and his ability also feeds off of the graveyard, so
Yeah,
quite
so
zombie-ish.
yeah, it feels fine all round.
Yeah.
The only issue I've ever had with this deck is occasionally it decides it doesn't want to provide me with any blue mana. So, even though it's got quite a few blue sources, it seems to regularly decide just no blue for you, which has proved a problem once or twice. But when you look at it, in the vast majority of the deck's black, it's not that much of an issue.
Well, you know why it is, don't you? Zombies can't swim.
Yeah. No, they just walk along the seabed.
I suppose they do, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sleeping tonight. Cheers, that guys.
So anyway, on the subject of swimming, shall we take a look at the second deck that we've got? So this is obviously the other end of the theme spectrum. So it's not a tribe; it's themed around just a generic theme.
It is. So, this is my Lorphos the Tidemaker, which I may have mentioned once or twice. This is my deck built around him. He's an octopus, and these are his sea friends. So.
Sorry, I now just have Under the Sea running through my head.
That's what the deck was called originally. But yeah, basically what I've tried to do with this deck is take the theme of the ocean and bring it into a deck, not only through creatures but also through spells. So obviously I've got whales and fish and sharks and jellyfish and other octopi and krakens and leviathans and everything else in there. But I've also tried to keep the instant sorceries, the one artifact which sort of fits the theme, and my instant as well. And even the non-basic lands all fit the theme. They're all something to do with water, or they have water in the art. I think Reliquary Tower's standing next to a river. Oh, it's in a frozen lake. That's good enough. It's good enough for me.
Nice save.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. The ocean's frozen over. So, this is probably my favourite deck. Bar none. Okay, maybe Foil Angels, but bar one. This is probably my favourite deck. Just because on the surface it looks pretty bad. When you get to the bottom of it, sorry about that, about the pun. When you get to the bottom of it, this deck is surprisingly good. And I don't know why.
Probably because no one bothered to waste any kill spells on it.
Do you reckon that's just my life theme? Just build decks when
Yeah,
no one's going to be bothered
no
to
one
kill
actually
it.
wants to kill. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, this is the perfect example of an alternative type of theme. Because, I mean, as you said, everything we spoke about earlier, I think, comes up in this deck. Because you look through it, and there are one or two creatures that normally even consider putting near a command. Hello?
Hello?
Oh, sorry, sorry, my microphone just went very quiet for a second there.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Cut out a bit, but carry on.
Yeah, so I would say you look through, and there's one or two creatures that I wouldn't normally put anywhere near a commander deck in general. But as you go through it, when you just see fish creature after fish creature after fish creature after fish creature, it just seems to work, and it just seems right.
So what cards would never see one of your commander decks?
Right, where was I? Hang on, I'm just going back through.
I'm guessing Jawari Scuttler is going to be one of them.
Calcite Snapper.
Yeah.
Personally, I wouldn't run Man of War myself, but you know it's all right. What else? Sea Monster. Just a 6/6 that 6/6 can't attack unless they've basically got Island Home. Not that. Well, for those players out there that are new that have no idea what Island Home is, that was when your opponent needed an island to allow you to attack or something like that, was it? Or did you need the island to be able to attack?
You needed the island, otherwise it would die. But they needed an island for it to be able to attack. So yeah.
That's the one. That's Island Home. It's not really used anymore because it was terrible.
Yeah, it did suck quite badly.
Yeah, it's mostly like it's essentially the older common creatures, just the ones I wouldn't personally include in an average blue deck. But going through here, they work, and actually some of the abilities are not amazing, but they're slightly better than I thought they were.
Well, that's a plus.
Yeah, I mean it's things like the spiny starfish, not just 3 mana for a 0/1 regenerate, but yeah, it can make tokens, and I suppose there's always something nice and big you want to block in Magic. Certainly in Commander.
Yeah, and it gives me something to use my old Pokemon Starmies for.
Oh, dear. And obviously, I'm fairly sure you will love the fact when Whelming Wave was printed.
Oh yes, did I? See, there's an interesting thing actually. So people have looked at Whelming Wave, and there's been this discussion about why does it bounce octopi but not squids? And I've come up with the answer. It's because squids are light enough to be picked up by the wave. Octopi are too fat.
I don't think that's a particularly great answer.
It's better than what we've got.
Are there many squid creatures?
There's that Chasm Skulker in the new set, who's a squid, isn't it?
Yeah, sounds giant squid maybe. Oh yeah, Sea Lock Monster. He's a squid. I think. No, he's an octopus. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it is a fantastic card.
While we're on the topic of Whelming Wave, do we think Wizards were maybe a little bit cowardly by not having Merfolk included in that? Did they maybe worry that it'd make too big an impact in Legacy and in Modern if Merfolk weren't in it? Because it seems so bizarre to me that Merfolk get returned back by a Whelming Wave.
Well, I mean, if you imagine that if that's Merfolk in it, then that's just a Wrath effect with for your opponent only in a Merfolk deck, essentially, because you're going to win on the turn that happens.
That and Merfolk are little, and they'll just be swept away. Well, think about it. The 4 creature types it doesn't bounce are all massive.
I don't know. Some octopuses are quite small.
Giant octopus is quite small, interestingly enough.
In comparison to the other creatures, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, and this deck took quite a long time to be able to source the cards for. Not necessarily source the cards for. They're easy enough for me to get hold of, but to find.
Yeah.
The creatures generally are quite easy. You can just gather a fish, leviathan, octopi, sponge will get you 1. Actually, while we're on that, the sponge is a fantastic card in this deck.
Yeah, actually, I do like Walking Sponge. I do have a couple myself. They are actually surprisingly useful.
Yeah. Basically, if you don't know what they do, they're a 2-mana 1/1, and it taps and target creature loses flying, first strike, or trample until end of turn.
Yeah, I mean, being able to get rid of something with trample and then just chuck your little 1/1 in the way, that's beautiful.
Yeah, that is really good. I'm not going to mention what the art looks like, but
yeah, it's not quite right.
It isn't right.
I mean, the problem with theme decks, as we had with the zombie deck, I mean, trying to actually recommend cards for any theme or zombie deck that's not yours isn't that easy, because it's whether or not the person you recommend to thinks they fit the theme as well. And also, certainly with Tribal, I mean, all you can really recommend is the other elves and zombies and whatnot that they haven't got in there already. I mean, the only ones that really jumping out for me on here is one of my favourites since I was introduced to it a couple of months ago, little blue creatures for any mono blue deck, and that's Floodgates. Now, it's not a creature that fits your bill, but it's a flood that kind of fits with blue. It's actually about a bursting dam more than an actual ocean, unfortunately. But that's I think off the top of my head, it's a 2-mana 0/4 wall. Hang on, I've lost my Floodgate now. It's a 2-mana 0/5 wall that when it gains flying, you sacrifice it. Whenever it leaves play, it deals 1 damage to each creature your opponents control for every 2 islands you've got, or something like that.
Yeah, fantastic flavour.
Yeah, so I kind of do feel it. I don't know. I don't know whether or not, with the fact it's a dam bursting rather than anything else, would it fit your ocean deck. But I do like it because it's a nice, it's a very odd blue board wipe. Sorry, 4 mana, not 2 mana. I did think that seemed quite cheap.
Yeah, it is an interesting blue board wipe.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a couple of suggestions which I think would be on theme for this one. We've got Biden to Thessa to begin with.
Yes, I hadn't actually thought of that.
Yeah, that seems a very obvious one to go in. Yeah, that works.
We've got High Tide.
What's High Tide?
High Tide is the really expensive card, which is why I thought it wasn't in there to begin with. It's a blue instant. Until end of turn, whenever a player taps an island for mana, that player adds blue to his or her mana pool. So double mana for a turn and fits the whole sea theme, which when you're in mono blue seems pretty legitimate.
Yep.
And the last one, which I'm thinking you probably got an idea of putting in, but you're waiting till it rotates out. Master of Waves.
Yes, that's something I've considered. I have one of those that could potentially go in.
I mean, I see you've got a lot of elementals in here anyway, so that's a general boost to them anyway. Never mind the tokens it puts in. So, I mean, you've got stuff in there that would benefit, like Muldrift as an elemental, so that'd get bigger. Not that you'd ever cast a Muldrifter as a creature, but you know, it's those three are really the ones that jumped out to me as being on theme.
Master makes sense. I mean, any mono deck. Theros powered mono decks beautifully with the devotion mechanic. So any mono deck should often look to the devotion cards to see what they can truly abuse in there. I actually do like the deck overall. I'm still not a big fan of the likes of Hammerhead Shark and things like that, but the arts are cool, and I suppose they need to get some action somewhere.
Exactly. There's a couple of things that were mentioned in my play group. One of which was Tidings. How does Tidings fit? It's got the word tide in it. It's essentially right there in its name. And the other one is Switcheroo. Because what's that got to do with the ocean? I mean, it's got a picture of a turtle in it.
Yeah, they shot the turtle with a dragon. Yeah, I did like that little touch. I thought that was nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the thing. It's with things like Tidings. I mean, I personally, even when I've got a theme deck, I wouldn't have an objection putting Tidings in because it's card draw, and all decks need card draw where they can get it. So I have no issue with things like that going in, even if they don't, because they're kind of almost theme neutral. I mean, if you actually look at the picture on Tidings, who's to say that's not a guy that sat in a ship's cabin on a boat?
Yes, I didn't think of that.
Who's to say it's not? I mean, he's sealing, he's blatantly carrying some form of important document. Who knows?
That's true. There's also, I don't know why, but I really enjoy playing with this. It's Sunken City. It's a blue anthem.
Yes, I remember Sunken City back from days of playing the old Chandalar game.
Yeah, I like it. Okay, so you have to pay double blue and you upkeep or you get rid of it. But yeah, sort of mid to late game, you can probably keep double blue up.
Yeah, so I would say that's the thing. I mean, it's paying 2 blue a turn to get +1/+1. It's not bad. It's fairly worth having. Certainly makes the fact that you actually produce quite a few little tokens quite useful.
Yeah.
It's all right as long as your opponent's not playing mono blue as well.
Yeah, well, yeah.
There is that. The only other person I know that plays mono blue won't be attacking with his wizards. What was the other thing I was going to mention? Oh yes, as well, is Lorphos doesn't have to be the commander in this deck. You can have Tromacrasis. He fits the theme. You can have Thassa. Thassa theoretically fits the theme a little bit better.
Well, she does because she's kind of god of the sea, so she should really lead it. I was going to say that. I mean, personally, I'd have Thassa as my commander just for the ability to scry every turn.
I find it surprising you've not got Tremacratis in the actual 99, because he's a powerhouse. Like, he stops your opponents from attacking because all creatures they control have to block him, otherwise he's unblockable.
Yeah.
So just the turn he drops, everyone's going to be either going for it or just stall the board, which is really what, as the blue player, you want to be doing.
Yeah. I would say Theros did provide you with some nice extra Krakens as well, didn't it?
It did. This is the only sort of proviso I've got of this deck is I don't want to put too many Krakens and Leviathans in, just because it then starts to become Kraken Leviathan tribal.
Yeah.
And it sort of takes the edge off of it if you can just go, I'm playing mono blue dirtly dudes for the first 5, 6, 7 turns, and then I'm just going to drop these massive fatties onto the board. You may as well be playing green.
I suppose I can understand that.
Yeah. And even you could take this deck blue-black as well, because there's a legendary octopus in blue-black. Whose name I've just forgotten.
There's Rexiel, isn't there?
Rexiel, yes, that's the guy. So if I get bored of it being mono-blue, I can make it blue-black.
Yeah, I suppose. And they'll say there's a blue zombie with black regenerate that's a drowned zombie, I think. So you could have a zombie on your seabed.
Oh yeah, the drowned.
Yeah, I think something like that.
Yeah, I remember the one. Yeah.
Yeah. So well, as I said, so hopefully those 2 decks will demonstrate to people that the 2 different types of, I mean, there's loads of types of theme, but they're 2 of the types of theme that we've kind of covered today. One that's just a theme, one that's an actual tribe. But doesn't mean you can't pick your own theme and go however you want, and the more ludicrous the theme, the better if you make it work.
Yeah. I actually have a quick challenge for listeners. There's not going to be any prizes for this, but you kind of get my thumbs up, which is worth $1 million. Which will be build a theme deck around music in any way, shape, or form, be it a song, a band, or just music in general. Just because I'm lazy and can't be bothered to come up with my own, so I'll just nick yours.
That sounds like a fairly difficult challenge.
Yeah, no. All it is I love music almost as much as Magic, so I'd quite like to combine the 2 into one deck. But I'm just going to put that out there. If anybody wants to look into doing a music theme deck, and you can get a list to us, we'll talk about it, and you'll get my $1 million thumbs up.
Right, so cards of the week, gentlemen.
Yes.
So who'd like to go in first?
Let's let our guest jump in first with his card of the week.
Okay, so I've been listening to this podcast for a while, and I've been thinking about if I ever got on the show, what I'd pick as my card of the week, and it's got to be none other than the Sphinx Bone Wand. This card is phenomenal.
It's also quite painful.
If any of you guys don't know what Sphinx Bone Wand is, I'd suggest you look it up. But it's basically a 7 mana artifact that states Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may put a charge counter on Sphinx Bone Wand. If you do, Sphinx Bone Wand deals damage equal to the number of charge counters on it to target creature or player. Now, this is basically a secondary win condition in my Melik, Spellsling, and EDH, and it gets out of hand so quickly. But you're losing to a 7-mana artifact. There's nothing really that keeps it alive. It's not got any evasion. It's just great. I just love it. And I'm after a foil one if anyone's got any foil one spare. But yeah, I just love the cards so much. And it fits the theme of the Melik deck, you know, cantrips and doubling spells.
Well, yeah, because obviously it's a fairly wizardy theme to it as well, and obviously it's a wand as well, so even just the name fits in.
Yeah, it's just, you know, if you play a lot of spells in Commander and you don't know it, you're welcome.
Obviously, we were trying to fit one to kind of fit a theme as well this week. So obviously, Kurt's fits his wizardy, casty theme quite nicely. I've got one that I did mention briefly and was in the Grim deck, and I think this one's a fairly key one to most tribes, not all, but most, and that's Urza's Incubator. So it's a 3-mana artifact. When it comes into play, choose a creature type. Creature spells of the chosen type cost 2 less to play. So obviously, certain tribes, I'm going to choose Goblin as an example, and probably Elves to a degree, that either have a very low curve or Elves that can generate a lot of mana. Not that necessary in them, because, they can usually ramp up their creatures quite quick. But the Zombie deck, I've got a few big meaty guys. Certainly in my Dragon deck, which has got a lot of big meaty guys, having 2 mana knocked off the cost of all your spells is just invaluable. Unbelievably invaluable. It turns my Dragon deck from a 1 dragon a turn to at least a 2. It's fantastic.
Does the same thing in my Angels. It's a brilliant card for its cost.
Yeah, I would say it's a must-have for any of the tribals that run on the higher end of the curve with the bigger guys. But obviously, if your highest mana cost in your deck's a 3-mana Lord, of which is probably, if it's Goblins, it's probably a 2 red 1 colourless. It's not probably worth it so much in there.
It works really well in Mere Tribal as well.
Yes, because it potentially will make quite a few of them free.
Yes, it makes most of them free. Yeah.
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 So what have you got for?
So my card is Death Render. So it was printed in Lorwyn and Conspiracy, I believe. It's a 4-mana artifact. Again, we're on our artifact theme again. This one's an equipment, so it's 4 colours to play it, 2 colours to equip it. A quick creature gets +2/+2. All very boring until you get to whenever a quick creature dies, you may put a creature card from your hand into play and attach Death Render to it. Now, it kind of works. Well, I say it kind of works, where it works very well in Angel, because you can just plop down an Angel, put a Death Render on it. Once it's you can just keep swinging it. Once it dies, you just put another good Angel down into play for absolutely nothing, with +2/+2 bonus. And if that dies, you just get another one. It works well in any tribe. It just works well in any tribal deck. I mean, with something as cheap as Elves and Zombies, it might be a lot of mana to put down just to get maybe a 2 or 3 drop in for nothing. But for your high-end tribes, Dragons, Angels, Sphinxes, I've seen it run in. This card is absolutely fantastic in that, especially if you've got a lot of board mass removal in your play group.
The other one advantage to Death Render is the fact that it doesn't obviously doesn't have to be in your turn. So I mean, you could almost use it to, certainly in multiplayer where you need to be able to block in multiple turns. You can block on a turn, your creature dies, it gets replaced by something else ready to block the next player.
Yes, yeah, that's very good as well.
Even the simplicity of that. So I mean, that just it gives you plenty of value. I mean, the only thing is it's going to run your hand out of creatures, but oh well, they're out on the board.
Exactly, and this is the thing as well. It only takes someone to wrath when you've got this thing attached, and you can just put down something even bigger. I've had it come down on with a Chroma comes down for nothing with it, and then you're looking at an 8/8 with all those abilities, And then once that died, I don't think it actually died, but if it did, I had an Angel of Serenity in my hand. So, and then when Angel of Serenity, so basically Angel of Serenity will exile 3 of my dead creatures, and when that dies, I get to put them back in my hand and then attach one to Death Render.
That sounds like a combo.
Oh no, we're treading very close to combo world again.
I call combo.
So that rounds out
Right.
cards of the week. So just a little thing before we go. I know I said it at the top of the show, but again, so many apologies for our lack of shows weekly. We've been ill, basically. Some of us have been ill. We've had our real life come into play, as you'd expect, and we haven't been putting episodes up as regularly as we'd like. To remedy that, I think what we're going to try and do, or actually do, is get them up 2 weekly now.
Yeah, it seems easy because obviously we obviously very much enjoy doing them, and we greatly appreciate feedback that we get. But sometimes with, as you say, certainly with the fact that it was 3 of us trying to do them regularly, trying to get 3 people with lives as well to commit on the same night to do things. It's not always been easy. So we figured try and stick to a regular fortnightly appearance rather than an irregular weekly.
Yeah. So again, thanks for sticking by us. While we haven't been pushing content out there, we really do appreciate it. And as Adam said, we really appreciate your feedback. And I've had quite a few deck lists sent to me as well, guys. So hopefully we'll get around to talking about those quite soon. Oh, and also, I promised this. A shout out to one of our listeners who's from America, so we're being heard overseas as well. And he's also sent us a deck list, so hopefully, if the time zones aren't too much of a problem, we'll like to get him on soon. But thank you very much for listening to us all the way over across the pond.
Yes, indeed. Right, so I think that about wraps it up for tonight, lads. So
it does. Thank you very much, guys.
Until next time.
Yeah, thanks. Cheers.
Until next time. Bye.